Grace and peace to you. Today we are continuing our study of the Apocalypse, the book of Revelation. Today's reading will start in Revelation chapter 1 and verse 10. I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and heard behind me a great voice, as of a trumpet. John was in the middle of communion with God, through prayer, when he would receive this book, Revelation, that we are now reading. The Lord's Day refers to Sunday. It was called the Lord's Day for Christ rose that first Easter Sunday morning. Since the first century, it has been Christian tradition for church services to be held on Sunday. The first record of this appears to be Acts chapter 20 and verse 7. Now all of a sudden, John hears someone behind him. The sound is said to be like that of a trumpet, something loud and stirring a sense of urgency. Verse 11 of the text. The voice said, saying, I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. And what thou seest, write in a book, and send it unto the 7 churches which are in Asia, unto Ephesus, and unto Smyrna, and unto Pergamos, and unto Thyatira, and unto Sardis, and unto Philadelphia, and unto Laodicea. Jesus reiterates his preeminence. He was the beginning of everything, its creator, and he is the end of everything in that he is the judge. John is clearly instructed to write down what he experiences and send it to 7 of the churches that were there at that time. The text called it Asia. It was also referred to as Asia Minor. During the time of Rome, the region was referred to that. The church's location, most of them are approximately in the region today we would call Turkey, the country of Turkey. Verse 12 of the text. And I turned to see the voice that spake with me, and being turned I saw 7 golden candlesticks. Naturally, John turned around to see who was speaking with him. The first thing John noticed was candlesticks, or a lampstand. In Matthew 5:14, Christ said that believers are the light of the world. Also in verse 16 he says, Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. Matthew 5:16. These candlesticks represent the 7 churches that this letter was first sent to. Now how do I know that the candlesticks are the churches? Verse 20 of this chapter, Revelation 1, verse 20, tells us just that. I state that to emphasize this. The answers are in the Bible. Please be wary. Many will attempt to put their private interpretation in the Bible, or will cite exclusively sources outside of the Bible as a means of interpreting it, saying that it's their authority or their source. Remember, 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 20. Knowing this first, that no prophecy of the Scripture is of any private interpretation. The Bible is our answer, and it alone should affect and tell us how we interpret what we read from it. Verse 13 of the text. And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle. John sees Jesus standing between the candlesticks or lampstands, clothed in a full-length robe and girded across the chest with gold. These types of raiments were heavenly garments, and we will see them throughout Revelation. Another example is Revelation 15, verse 6. Gold has long since been associated with power, wealth, and royalty. It's only fitting then that the King of Kings is dressed as such. Jesus is speaking with John, and John had been one of Jesus' earliest disciples. The term Son of Man appears frequently in the New Testament. It is used to describe Jesus, and Jesus himself uses the term in Matthew 20, verse 18, an example of that there. It is a reminder that Jesus is God, and yet he chose to make himself like mortal man during his earthly ministry. 1 Timothy 3:16 says that he is God wrapped in flesh. He came to us with the express purpose of saving us from the wrath to come. Verse 14 of the text. His head and his hairs were white as wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire. The terminology here is similar to Daniel 7, verse 9, if you're interested in a cross-reference. Christ is depicted as being aged. Why? It is another way of expressing his preeminence. He was there at the beginning of the universe. Before anything was created, he was there. Fire is referenced here as well, and fire has often been associated with God in the scriptures. An example is Isaiah 66:15. For behold, the Lord will come with fire and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury and his rebuke with flames of fire. Fire often speaks of judgment in the book of Revelation as well as elsewhere. Why is God shown as being angry? Mankind is living in rebellion against God and has rejected the morals and standards that have been displayed in the Bible. John chapter 3 verse 20. For everyone that doeth evil hateth the light, neither cometh to the light, lest his deeds should be reproved. The Bible is rejected by most because it condemns the practices of many. It speaks the truth instead of a lie, and it demands a change. Verse 15 of the text. And his feet like unto fine brass, as if they were in a furnace, burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. Note the comparison to brass from a furnace. Yet again we see another reference to fire, but of brass. It's actually mentioned often in the Bible, an example of it being associated with God's teaching is Deuteronomy 28:23. Moses was telling the children of Israel about the judgments God would bring should they fail to keep the covenant, the law of Moses at the time. One of the curses, he said, would be as though the sky itself would become brass and the ground is iron. This implied a judgment of agriculture becoming impossible. No soil, no rain, no harvest. Brass is unyielding, hence its association with fire and judgment. Continuing the text, also the righteous voice of God cannot be quelled or quieted, hence its description. His voice sounds as though the very fury of the oceans themselves are speaking out. That will end our reading for now. I want to thank you for joining, and we will continue the lesson in the future. May the Lord bless you and keep you. Till next time.